Growing up, my dad was a pastor, and we lived in a good home. But being in ministry as a child was a very tough thing. As a pastor's kid, you get to see behind closed doors, and I got to hear how some of the people in our church treated my father, the things they would say to him. I allowed that to kind of build a wedge between me and Christ. If that's what Christianity was, I didn't want any part of it. I became a problem child at school, had a lot of behavioral issues at home, and when I graduated high school, my mom and dad moved to Atlanta, and I stayed behind and wound up joining the Marine Corps. I was running from God. I was running from a calling on my life. I was living in the world, and I was enjoying every bit of it. And God would speak to me. He would say, "This is not you. This is not what I made you for. You're called to something better." So I got married 2 years into my time in the Marine Corps. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, Robin's pregnant with my oldest child, Natalie, and trying to figure out who I am, trying to be a husband, and failing miserably at it. By this time, I'd been out of church around 12 years. And we moved to New Orleans, right outside New Orleans, Louisiana, a little town called Mandeville. We hadn't been in Louisiana long, and we're driving in the car, and Natalie, who was in kindergarten at the time, and she asked us who Jesus was. We decided we need to get in church. We just felt guilty because, like, our kids in kindergarten, we're in the South, and she's never heard of Jesus. This is crazy. I remember my first church service in Mandeville. It was July 4th, 2004. I remember the message being something that was practical. It was life-giving. It was truth. And so we stay in that church every week. We're hiding in there, going in, not connecting with anybody. I get my coffee, go sit down in the back. But every week I'm listening to the pastor. And it felt like every week he's talking to me. And every week I felt like, man, this tug at my heart. God's calling me. And I remember giving my life to Christ and submitting my life to Him, saying, "Lord, not only do I want you to be my Savior, I want you to be the Lord of my life." And from that point forward, my life changed. Robin and I joined a small group probably about 9 months after we got saved. And I'll tell you, some of the biggest growth I had spiritually came from being in a small group. I felt this tug in my heart, that God was calling me into ministry. But we continued to pray about things, and as I was having conversations with my pastors, and it was a process, probably about another year and a half or so of sitting down, talking with them, sharing my heart, and didn't quite know what that was going to look like at the time. We heard about CrossPointe Church. And so I remember I got David's information off the website, and I shot him an email. My wife and I had a dinner with he and Linnell, and we went to our first service at CrossPointe. And on the way home to Louisiana, probably around Marianna, Florida, we both looked at each other and we're like, we feel like God's calling us to CrossPointe. Came to Valdosta, stepped out in faith, and that's how we got here at CrossPointe. I do feel like I'm right in the process of fulfilling my calling here at CrossPointe. Ministry I can't think of anything more rewarding. My mentors poured into me when I was a young Christian. I love doing that with others. I think about Ephesians 2:10, where God's created us, we're His workmanship, and He has a plan for our lives, and it's been laid out in advance. And that I'm walking in that I'm fulfilling a calling on my life. There's nothing, more rewarding than walking in obedience and walking and living out your life in a way that honors God, but knowing that you're fulfilling God's will for your life.